Now, there are many in the West who say we don't want another Cold War. But we have to be clear that this is not a choice that we are in a position to make. Because China has already embarked on a self-reliance drive, whether we want to decouple from the economy or not. The only choice we have is, do we appease and accommodate that strategy, or do we take action now to prevent conflict?
Well, China called Truss's visit a dangerous political stunt. During the Conservative Party leadership contest, Truss, she pledged to take a firm stance against the Chinese government. Well, the current UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak declared China as the biggest threat to the UK as well, while vowing to close all 30 of the Chinese institutes in the UK. However, till now, the Sunak-led government has not closed any of these institutes, but the UK government is expected to stop the funding of these Mandarin teaching centres. The UK government claims the Chinese government uses the centres to spread propaganda under the disguise of these so-called institutes. Well, for more details, I'm joined now by Greg Swenson, the international affairs expert, a China analyst, joining us live from London today. Good to see you. So what do you make of Liz Truss's rhetoric here? What would you say in response to what she's been saying?
Well, there's nothing that she's saying that could be considered controversial or outrageous. I think she's reiterating a lot of the points that many conservatives here in the UK, as well as conservatives in the US, are making about the threat from the CPP, the general threat from China, and also she stressed not only military or defense measures, but also she's stressing the economic issues that surround many of the conflicts with China and their economic mercantilism. So look, I thought she made some good points. I'm not sure that maybe she's the right person. Maybe it should be the prime minister. But look, I think many of the points she made have real support on the right.
Apologies, we're having a few technical issues there, but I think I understood what you were saying is that Truss is making some good points, but she might not necessarily be the right person to do it.
Yeah.
She's probably most remembered for that disastrous budget that we had here in Britain, of course, and maybe, as you say, she's probably not the right person. Who do you think is the appropriate person then to be able to liaise between the two?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think on economic matters, you have a few, like maybe Kemi Badenoch might be a better person. And again, I'm not suggesting Liz Truss is absolutely the wrong person, but as you pointed out, she did not have great success with her economic strategy, which was a great strategy, and I think she took some unfair heat for that because the crisis with the pension funds and the bond volatility, which really wasn't her fault, but we have to admit that her execution was not great. So there might not be the kind of confidence in her. And in terms of economic matters, I mean, she's highlighted the UK and the CPTPP and trying to rally other countries to join it. I think that's great, but perhaps she has maybe she's in a better position around military and defense matters rather than economics. But either way, I think she's making a good point. I think that the fact that the U.S. is not really taking a lead here with Anthony Blinken going over to meetings with Xi in somewhat of a compromised position. I think it's important for the UK as the U.S. As the United States' best military ally and economic ally, it's important for Liz Truss or anyone to make these statements.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it's a tricky one, given that here in Britain and really much of the world, most of our products come from China. I mean, China will be at one point, 10 years, maybe 20 years, we don't know the exact date, but it is going to be the biggest economy in the world. So does it not make sense to be friends with China?
Well, to a certain degree, there has to be trade, but it has to be fair trade. And I think that's one of the things that the prior administration in the U.S. brought up, as well as critics here in the UK, that, we're all for trade with China. The U.S. is trading $2 billion a day. It's a massive trading partner. There's no doubt about that, but it has to be done fairly. And if it's not going to be done fairly, then I think the US and the UK, as well as the EU, have to embrace other trading partners, make sure there's not unfair economic activity from China, but also there's not dependence on China. And I think that's important. Right now, the US is really compromised with what's happening with the Biden family business, much of which was with China. So I think, again, it's important for the UK to take a lead in this. And yes, we will trade with China, and I think that's important to keep in mind. But it has to be free and fair trade, not the kind of trade and mercantilist, with the IT theft, all kinds of economic warfare, really, that China is trying to take advantage of the West on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, some brilliant points there. Thank you so much. Really interesting there. Greg Swenson, international affairs expert, a China analyst as well. Thank you for your time. We appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.